When you're walking around your neighborhood, you might wonder, how do you buy the loans on any of these houses, also known as the notes on these houses? Aren't they all bank financed? And the answer is the vast majority of them are bank financed. And yet the banks aren't going to be willing to deal with you as an individual or even your LLC as a small player to sell you these notes. So then how do you buy them? Most of the time, you actually are going to buy them from private parties. So the question is, how do those private parties end up getting those notes? Turns out that many of the banks deal with institutions that buy them and then eventually sell them off to private parties. So oftentimes you're getting them a second hand. For example, I'm working on one deal right now, which I may or may not do, where a bank created a home equity line of credit on a house that was defaulted on, and then they sold that loan to another bank, and bank number two turned around and sold that loan eventually to yet another bank, and that was actually one of the household name bank, that third bank. And then that third bank decided not to keep that loan either, and then they sold that loan to another party, and that's when it went to a private party. It was an LLC that somebody owned. Eventually that LLC actually sold that loan to yet another LLC. And that is now the LLC that I'm talking to, a person there that owns that LLC. And that person is looking to sell that note. And it's an interesting situation in many ways. But without getting into those details, it's interesting even just the part I just talked about, because you see that chain of custody of the note and how it eventually can get into the hands of someone like me or someone like you who is much smaller and is learning the game and just wants to buy a note to build your own portfolio. So you don't have to go and deal with the banks. You can deal with private parties, and you can also deal with institutions. That's something I'll talk about in another video.